This is it. This is the last episode of Sherri. When I say, hey family, I don't take it lightly. Because for 1 hour every day, I really felt like everybody here and at home was my family. I did. So seriously, thank you. Now, what am I gonna do with all this time I have on my hands? I've been so busy, I haven't had time to focus on the important things.
The most interesting situation in this case is the fact that generally it's the surrogate that becomes attached to the child during pregnancy. In this particular case, you have Sherri, who so passionately told everybody how she's going to be the mother of another child.
I'm having a baby, so everything is going great. Whoa.
And now she's walking away from a perfectly healthy, wonderful newborn infant.
When Sherri Shepherd stood on stage and emotionally thanked her audience during what would become the final chapter of her daytime television journey, it felt like the end of a dream years in the making. For 1 hour every day, she told viewers that they felt like family. It was a heartfelt moment, one that reflected how hard she had worked to build her own space in daytime television. But while many fans saw a successful host celebrating her accomplishments, others saw something very different. For them, the end of Sherri's daytime run brought back a series of old controversies that never completely disappeared. In fact, for some viewers, the biggest story surrounding Sherri Shepherd was never about her television success at all. It was about the questions that followed her rise, the relationships that ended badly, and the public disputes that continue to divide opinion years later. And once you start looking at the full picture, it becomes clear why Sherri remains one of the most debated personalities in daytime television.
She's not well. So there's just a lot going on in Wendy's life that this is where you need your friends, where you need your family. You need people who love you. So all I can do over here is pray for Wendy. Where's Wendy's best friend? I don't know who Wendy's friends are. We didn't run in the same circle.
To understand why so many people have mixed feelings about Sherri Shepherd, you first have to look at how she arrived at one of the most coveted positions in daytime TV. When Wendy Williams stepped away from her show due to serious health struggles, the future of her daytime empire suddenly became uncertain. Millions of viewers had spent years watching Wendy dominate daytime television with her unique blend of celebrity gossip, bold opinions, and unpredictable moments. Her show wasn't just another talk show, it was a brand built around her personality. As Wendy's absence stretched on, a rotating lineup of guest hosts stepped in to keep the show alive. Among them was Sherri Shepherd.
I had consigned myself to, okay, we're gonna have this baby and I'm gonna just be unhappy for the rest of my life and have an affair. Because I said, well, how are we gonna take care of this child? Because I'm working 2 jobs already. I'm doing a newlywed game, I'm doing a view. And he like, we'll get a second nanny. How are we supposed to afford a second nanny?
I'm just supposed to work myself to death.
And then I told him, because he was an
these
out-of-work
children.
writer, and I said, well, you gotta get a job writing. And he was like, no, because if we have a baby, I'm staying home.
At first, it seemed like a temporary opportunity, another guest appearance in a long television career. But over time, something unexpected happened. Sherri became one of the standout replacements, eventually leading to the launch of her own daytime show in the very space Wendy had left behind. That transition immediately sparked debate. Supporters argued that Sherri had earned the opportunity through years of hard work in television, comedy, and broadcasting. Critics, however, weren't convinced. Many felt that the similarities between the two shows were impossible to ignore. The audience, the format, the time slot, and even parts of the overall atmosphere felt familiar. To some viewers, it looked less like the creation of a brand new show and more like a continuation of an existing one under a different name. Adding to the controversy was the fact that Wendy Williams was still alive and continuing to struggle with significant personal and health issues while this transition unfolded.
A reproductive center, like out of the phone book. We went there and it turned out that like one of my tubes was blocked. Then they talked about surgery and then I just felt like, oh my God, what is going on with my body? Everything else is working out in my life, but somehow my body is not working according to how I thought it was supposed to work. We went to the IUI. Meanwhile, I think there was some minor little laparoscopic things they had to do to fix my little package in there.
Although Sherri publicly expressed sympathy for Wendy and often wished her well, she also made it clear that they had never been particularly close. She openly stated that they did not run in the same circles and were not close friends behind the scenes. While some people appreciated her honesty, others felt uncomfortable with how quickly the industry seemed ready to move on from Wendy's legacy. But if the Wendy Williams situation planted the first seeds of controversy, it was Sherri's personal life that truly intensified public debate. Long before she became the face of her own daytime show, Sherri was involved in a highly publicized marriage to Lamar Sally. Their relationship would eventually become one of the most talked about celebrity breakups of its time, not only because of how it ended, but because of everything afterward. Interestingly, Lamar and Sherri were introduced through actress Niecy Nash, who was reportedly close to Sherri at the time. Looking back, that connection would later become part of the larger story as fans revisited the complicated network of relationships surrounding the couple.
This child's not biologically connected to me.
Right.
So what
You
it
like,
is
I'm not
is
getting involved in that.
What people don't know, because you will never see anything other than a smile. I don't let you in on my private life. So what people don't know is every day we argue. Every day we argued about this. He wanted a baby. I did not want a baby because I have Jeffrey with special needs. I was tired.
Right.
And he was like, it ain't fair that you have a baby. Do you have a son and I don't have a son? And I mean, it literally, basically, he was like, well, if you don't have my baby, then... So when somebody do this,
Right.
that means I'm going to go and...
According to Sherri, the marriage was troubled almost from the beginning. She has described feeling lonely while living in New York and wanting companionship during a difficult period of her life. She also claimed that several of her friends expressed concerns about the relationship before the wedding even took place. In interviews over the years, she painted a picture of a marriage that quickly became unhappy and filled with disagreements. However, Lamar's version of events has often sounded dramatically different. While Sherri described herself as someone trapped in an unhealthy relationship, Lamar suggested that the breakdown of the marriage was not nearly as simple as it was being portrayed publicly. As a result, viewers were left with two competing narratives, each presenting a very different interpretation of what really happened behind closed doors. The situation became even more complicated when discussions about starting a family entered the picture. Sherri had spoken openly about her struggles with fertility and her desire to have another child. After experiencing difficulties conceiving naturally, she and Lamar reportedly explored multiple medical options. According to Sherri's own accounts, doctors eventually determined that her eggs were not viable, forcing the couple to consider alternative paths toward parenthood. Ultimately, they decided to pursue surrogacy. At the time, it appeared to be a hopeful new chapter. Legal agreements were in place, a surrogate was selected, and plans for the future seemed to be moving forward. Publicly, Sherri appeared excited about the possibility of welcoming another child into her life.
What makes this story so fascinating, however, is what happened next. While the surrogate pregnancy was progressing, the marriage itself was reportedly falling apart. According to accounts that later emerged, serious tensions began developing between Sherri and Lamar during the pregnancy. Some reports suggested disagreements over family responsibilities, finances, and future plans were creating enormous strain. Sherri later described feeling overwhelmed by the idea of raising another child while balancing a demanding career and caring for her son. She spoke about being exhausted and concerned about how another child would affect her already hectic life. Lamar, on the other hand, reportedly maintained a very different perspective regarding their plans and expectations. As the relationship deteriorated, what had initially been a private family matter quickly evolved into a public controversy. The surrogate pregnancy was already well underway when the marriage reached a breaking point. Suddenly, discussions about divorce became intertwined with questions about parental responsibility, legal obligations, and the future of a child who had not yet been born. This is the point where public opinion became deeply divided. Supporters of Sherri argued that she was facing an incredibly difficult and emotionally complex situation. Critics argued that personal disagreements between adults should not change commitments that had already been made. The debate quickly moved beyond the specifics of the marriage and became a larger conversation about responsibility, accountability, and the ethical challenges surrounding surrogacy arrangements. The legal battle that followed only intensified scrutiny. According to widely discussed reports, Sherri argued that she was not biologically related to the child involved in the surrogate arrangement. Her critics immediately seized on that argument, claiming that biological connection was not the central issue because the process had been intentionally initiated and agreed upon long before the marriage collapsed. Meanwhile, supporters argued that the circumstances were far more complicated than outsiders understood. As media coverage expanded, both sides of the story gained supporters. The result was a highly emotional public dispute in which nearly every new development triggered another round of debate online. What made matters even more controversial was the perception that Sherri had greater influence over public narratives than Lamar did. As a recognizable television personality with years of experience in the entertainment industry, she naturally received more media attention. Some observers believed this allowed her side of the story to dominate headlines, while others argued that she was simply being judged more harshly because of her celebrity status. Either way, the controversy followed her for years. Every new interview, every public appearance, and every career milestone seemed to bring renewed discussion about the surrogacy dispute and the circumstances surrounding it. Then there is the broader criticism that continues to surface whenever Sherri's name appears in celebrity discussions. Some critics claim there is a pattern connecting the Wendy Williams situation, the fallout with Lamar, and other relationships from her past. They argue that Sherri has a tendency to move on quickly when people no longer fit into her life or career path. Supporters strongly reject that interpretation, pointing out that public audiences rarely have access to the full truth behind private relationships. They argue that people often oversimplify complex situations and ignore the emotional realities faced by those involved. The truth, as is often the case in celebrity controversies, likely remains far more complicated than either side wants to admit. What keeps this story alive years later is not necessarily the legal details or even the personal disputes themselves. It is the contrast between image and perception. On television, Sherri Shepherd is known for being warm, energetic, optimistic, and relatable. She presents herself as someone who overcame obstacles and achieved remarkable success through determination and hard work. Yet critics continue to point toward moments from her past that they believe reveal a different side of the story. Whether those criticisms are fair or not depends largely on who you ask, but the fact that people are still debating these events today shows just how powerful the controversy remains. At its core, the Sherri Shepherd story is about much more than daytime television. It's about competing narratives, conflicting perspectives, and the difficulty of separating public image from private reality. Some people see a woman who fought her way to the top of a competitive industry despite enormous challenges. Others see a series of controversies that raise legitimate questions about the decisions she made along the way. And perhaps that is why the conversation never truly ends. Every time a new chapter closes, people revisit the old ones. Every time her career reaches another milestone, the debates return. And now that one era of her television journey appears to be ending, many viewers are once again asking the same question they've been asking for years. Is the public seeing the full story, or only the version that made it to the spotlight? What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more celebrity stories, controversies, and untold Hollywood drama.